right now, while you're watching this, something is happening inside your body that's worth understanding clearly. Every day, through what you eat, how you sleep, and how you move, you're influencing biological processes that are genuinely connected to long-term cancer risk. I want to walk you through what real research actually shows about this connection, because the science here is fascinating and, more importantly, actionable, without overstating what diet and lifestyle can and can't do. I'm here with Human Health Zone, and I want to start with something that often surprises people when they first learn it. Cancer cells aren't some foreign invader. They're your own cells, with your own DNA, that have undergone changes allowing them to grow in ways normal cells don't. Understanding a bit about how they behave helps explain why certain lifestyle factors are genuinely connected to cancer risk. Every cell in your body needs energy. Healthy cells typically rely on an efficient process using oxygen and glucose. Cancer cells often behave differently, a phenomenon first described by Nobel Prize-winning scientist Otto Warburg back in 1931, now called the Warburg effect. Warburg found that cancer cells frequently shift toward a different, less efficient way of using glucose, sugar for energy, and often consume it at a substantially higher rate than normal cells. This is well-established, foundational cancer biology, and it's part of why blood sugar management is a genuinely relevant piece of the cancer risk conversation, even though it's important to be precise that the exact magnitude of this effect varies across different cancer types and isn't a single fixed multiplier. So it's worth asking honestly, how much added sugar are you eating? Not just the obvious sources, but the sugar hidden in cereal, flavored yogurt, fruit juice, white bread, pasta, and sauces. The World Health Organization recommends adults keep added sugar under about 25 grams a day, while research suggests many people in Western countries consume considerably more than that on average. Over time, a diet consistently high in added sugar and refined carbohydrates can contribute to insulin resistance, and elevated insulin doesn't just affect blood sugar regulation, it also functions as a growth signal in the body. Research has connected insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes to higher rates of several cancers, including pancreatic, colorectal, and breast cancer. Looking specifically at colorectal cancer, multiple meta-analyses have found that people with type 2 diabetes have roughly a 20 to 40% higher relative risk compared to those without diabetes, a meaningful and consistent finding across multiple studies, even though it's a real, evidence-based association rather than a more dramatic single-study figure sometimes quoted online. Chronic inflammation is the second major piece of this picture. Think of your immune system's inflammatory response like a fire department responding to a real threat, essential when it's temporary, but harmful if it never fully resolves. Research has established that chronic, low-grade inflammation creates conditions that can support abnormal cell growth over time. Diet is one of the biggest modifiable contributors to this kind of chronic inflammation, particularly diets heavy in ultra-processed foods, fast food, packaged snacks, processed meats, and foods fried in heavily refined oils. These foods are associated with the release of pro-inflammatory signaling molecules called cytokines, which over time can disrupt normal cellular repair processes. A well-known study published in the BMJ, following over 100,000 adults in the French Nutrinet Santé cohort, found that every 10% increase in proportion of ultra-processed food in someone's diet was associated with a 12% increase in overall cancer risk. That's a real, specific, and meaningfully large finding from a large, well-conducted study, and it's worth taking seriously. Quick disclaimer in the middle of this video. This is general information about cancer risk reduction based on published research, not medical advice, and it is absolutely not a substitute for the guidance of an oncologist for anyone who has been diagnosed with cancer. Diet and lifestyle factors discussed here relate to long-term risk in the general population, not to treating existing cancer. IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1, is another piece worth understanding. This hormone plays an important role in growth during childhood, but chronically elevated levels in adulthood have been associated with higher rates of certain cancers in research literature, including breast, prostate, and colon cancer. Diets very high in animal protein, particularly large amounts of dairy and red meat, are one factor that can raise IGF-1 levels. This doesn't mean meat or dairy need to be eliminated entirely, but research from institutions including Harvard School of Public Health has consistently associated regular consumption of processed red meat specifically, more than roughly 4 servings per week, with elevated colorectal cancer risk. And the International Agency for Research on Cancer has classified processed meats like bacon and sausage as Group 1 carcinogens, the same classification category used for tobacco smoke, reflecting strength of evidence for a causal link rather than equivalent magnitude of risk. Now, let's talk about what the research suggests may help, with the same honesty about strength of evidence. Managing blood sugar through reducing added sugar and refined carbohydrates, favoring whole grains and fiber, has real biological plausibility given everything we've discussed about glucose and insulin signaling, and several studies have found associations between lower glycemic diets and reduced cancer risk, including for breast cancer. Those specific risk reduction percentages vary across studies and shouldn't be treated as a fixed, guaranteed number. Anti-inflammatory whole foods are a second genuinely evidence-backed area. Cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, and kale contain sulforaphane, which laboratory research has shown can trigger apoptosis, programmed cell death, in cancer cells under study conditions. Berries are rich in anthocyanins that help neutralize free radicals connected to DNA damage. Turmeric's active compound, curcumin, has been studied for its ability to interfere with cancer cell signaling pathways, and green tea's EGCG compound has shown anti-angiogenic properties in research, meaning it may help limit the blood vessel growth tumors depend on. These are genuinely promising, well-studied compounds, primarily demonstrated in laboratory and some human population studies, representing real and active areas of nutritional cancer research rather than settled clinical treatments. Your gut microbiome is a third area worth real attention. A large portion of your immune system's activity is closely tied to gut health, and a diverse microbiome appears to play a meaningful role in immune surveillance against abnormal cells. Research has found that cancer patients with more diverse gut microbiomes tend to respond better to immunotherapy treatment than those with less diverse gut bacteria, a genuinely exciting and active area of oncology research. Supporting gut diversity through fermented foods like yogurt with live cultures, kimchi, sauerkraut, and kefir, along with a wide variety of plant fiber, is a reasonable, low-risk habit connected to this research. Intermittent fasting and autophagy represent a fourth area, and one where I want to be careful about the strength of the claim. When you fast for an extended period, your cells can activate autophagy, a process where cells break down and recycle damaged components. Yoshinori Osumi won the 2016 Nobel Prize for foundational research into autophagy, and there's a genuinely active and growing body of research connecting autophagy to cellular health, including some early research interest in its relationship to cancer biology. It's important to be honest that human evidence specifically linking everyday intermittent fasting schedules to reduce cancer risk is still developing and far less established than the basic cell biology of autophagy itself. So this is best framed as a promising area of ongoing research rather than a proven cancer prevention strategy. Exercise has more robust, well-established evidence behind it. Regular physical activity is associated with lower circulating insulin, reduced inflammatory markers, support for immune cell activity, including natural killer cells, and lower circulating estrogen, which is relevant to breast cancer risk specifically. Multiple studies, including research from major cancer organizations, have found meaningfully lower cancer risk among physically active individuals compared to sedentary ones, though specific percentage figures vary by study and cancer type. You don't need intense exercise for this benefit. Regular moderate activity, such as brisk walking most days of the week, is consistently associated with measurable risk reduction in the research literature. Finally, sleep deserves real attention as an underappreciated factor. Melatonin, produced during deep sleep, functions as an antioxidant in addition to regulating sleep, and some research has connected disrupted melatonin production, as seen in long-term night shift workers, to higher rates of certain cancers. The International Agency for Research on Cancer has classified night shift work involving circadian disruption as a probable carcinogen based on this body of evidence. Consistent, adequate sleep, generally cited around 7 to 9 hours for most adults, is a reasonable and well-supported part of an overall risk reduction approach. Here's the honest bottom line. Genetics matter, but a substantial proportion of cancer cases, with credible estimates from researchers, including those at Harvard converging around 40%, are linked to modifiable lifestyle factors, primarily smoking, excess body weight, alcohol consumption, UV exposure, and diet and activity patterns broadly. That's a meaningful and genuinely empowering statistic. It does not mean cancer is always preventable, and it absolutely does not mean that diet or lifestyle changes can reverse cancer that has already developed and progressed. That is a question for oncology treatment, not nutrition content. What it does mean is that consistent, modest choices, reducing added sugar and ultra-processed foods, eating more vegetables and fiber, staying physically active, and prioritizing sleep are genuinely connected to long-term risk reduction in the research literature, not as a guarantee, but as a meaningful shift in your odds over time. If this gave you a clearer, more honest picture of the actual science, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Human Health Zone. If you found it useful, share it with someone who might benefit from understanding the real research rather than exaggerated claims. We'll see you in the next one.